My name is Grace Miller. I am 65 years old, and I live alone in a small apartment in Washington. My hair has turned gray, and the mirror often shows a stranger I barely recognize. People say time heals everything, but they never tell you that some wounds are too deep, that some names become echoes inside your soul. For me, that name is Daniel Hayes. There was a time when I used to believe love was for the young, for those who still had dreams to chase, hands to hold, and years to waste. But life proved me wrong. I met Daniel when I was almost 50. By then my life was quiet, painfully quiet. I worked at a public library downtown. Every day felt the same. The smell of old books, the sound of turning pages, and the silence of my own thoughts. Then one rainy afternoon he walked in. He wasn't extraordinary, not the kind of man who'd draw eyes in a crowd, but there was something in the way he smiled, something honest and warm. He walked up to the counter and asked, "Do you have books about love?" I smiled faintly and said, "Love? That section is rarely visited these days." He laughed softly. "Then maybe I should start visiting more often." That was the beginning. He became a regular visitor. Every few days he'd walk in, sometimes pretending to look for books, sometimes just to talk. Slowly our conversations grew longer. He'd tell me about his travels, his love for old music, and how he believed that everyone deserves a second chance in life. I didn't realize when those quiet conversations became the best part of my day. One evening he handed me a cup of coffee and said, "Grace, do you ever feel like your life paused somewhere?" I nodded. "Years ago. And I never found the courage to hit play again." He smiled. "Then let me press it for you." That was Daniel, simple words, deep meaning. He had a way of making me believe again. We started spending evenings together. Sometimes we'd sit on the bench outside the library and watch people pass by. Other times we'd walk by the lake, talking about everything and nothing. He once told me, "Grace, you don't need to fix your past. You just need to let your heart breathe again." For the first time in decades, I laughed without guilt, without fear. My world, which had been colorless for years, slowly started to bloom again because of him. He brought me small gifts. A book of poems, a blue scarf, a music CD from the 80s. One day when he wrapped the scarf around my shoulders, he said, "It's the color of the sky. It suits you." I told him, "The sky is too far away." He smiled. "Then I'll bring it closer to you." I didn't know that was a promise he couldn't keep. A few months later, he told me he had to leave, just a short business trip, he said. 3 days, he promised. "I'll be back before you miss me." I held his hand tightly. "Come back soon, Daniel. This city feels lonely without you." He kissed my forehead and whispered, "I'll be back, Grace. I promise." But promises are fragile things. 3 days turned into 3 weeks. 3 weeks turned into 3 months. And then silence. No letters. No calls. No sign. I went to the library every day, hoping he'd appear in that doorway again. I would look up each time the bell rang, my heart racing, but it was never him. People told me to move on, that maybe something happened, maybe he wasn't who I thought he was. But I couldn't believe that. Daniel wasn't a lie. He was the only truth my heart had ever known. Years passed. Seasons changed. My hair turned gray and my body grew weak. But the memory of Daniel stayed young, untouched by time. Every corner of my apartment carries his shadow. The old scarf still hangs near the window, swaying gently whenever the wind passes through. Sometimes I imagine that he did come back, that maybe he stood outside my door once, too afraid to knock. Maybe life played its cruel trick, and we simply missed each other by a heartbeat. But then the night falls and I realize, no, he's gone. For good. Now at 65, I spend my evenings writing letters I'll never send. Letters to Daniel. Letters to love. Letters to the version of myself that once dared to believe again. Last night I found an old photograph of us, the only one I have. We were sitting by the lake, and I was laughing, really laughing. I stared at that photo for hours. My wrinkled hands trembled as I traced his face with my fingers. "Where did you go, Daniel?" I whispered. "Why didn't you come back?" The room gave no answer, only the faint sound of rain against the window. Today I woke up with a strange peace in my heart. It felt as if something inside me was finally ready to rest. I sat at my desk, took out a piece of paper and began to write. "Dear Daniel, you once said you'd bring the sky closer to me. Maybe now I'll come closer to the sky myself. If you ever think of me wherever you are, know that I never stopped waiting. Not even for a day. Love doesn't die, Daniel. People do. Grace." I placed the letter beside my bed, wrapped myself in the blue scarf and closed my eyes. Outside, the rain had started again, soft and steady, just like the night he first walked into my life. The room felt colder but somehow lighter. They say that when someone you love truly leaves, a part of your soul follows them. Maybe tonight my soul is finally catching up with his. And as I take my last breath, I whisper one final thing. Not out of sadness but love. "Daniel, I'm coming home." And somewhere, beyond the sound of rain and time, two souls meet again, under the same blue sky.